Hey guys, how's it going? And welcome back. So Apple is claiming that 8 gigs of their RAM is equivalent to 16 gigs of RAM on other systems. I really think they have to start a policy at work to stop eating those funny gummy bears, if you know what I mean. That or everybody at Apple has had like major strokes because 8 gigs is 8 gigs, 16 is 16. That's all there is to it, okay? So Mac OS is at 5.5 gigs, so that's 5.5 plus gigs of RAM. Okay, so let's do a little math here, okay? If we have 8 gigs and we minus 5.5, that means we have 2.5 gigabytes of RAM left over to run programs with, which is not very much. In fact, you could run iMovie, drop in a basic video, which you guys know I do a lot of basic stuff. It's kind of like, here I am, let's do this. And I go clip, clip, add my intro, outro, and export it. When you export it, it actually puts it beyond 8 gigs of RAM, exporting the video. I'm like, ooh, I'm into swap to export a video with 8 gigs? Awesome! All right. Because you guys know I do have a base model Mac Mini here, okay? Plus I have one with 16 gigs of RAM. And the 16 gigger has yet to ever see virtual memory. Anyways, but the 8 gigger, unfortunately, yeah, I can't even play Skyrim and it's automatically in a swap. So 8 gigs is 8 gigs, right? Now, Windows, of course, is one of the alternate choices in life. My operating system is currently staying at 8.8 just to get to the desktop here out of 64 gigs of RAM that I have. Okay, so that would mean that I would be 800 into swap, right? So I would use my entire 8 gigs of RAM when the OS uses 8 gigs, but then I would be another 800 into swap. Well, 800 kilobytes, right? So, anyways, this is kind of like, this is interesting. I just kind of like dumbfounded, right? So, but if you take a 16 gig machine and you minus out 5.5 gigs, that leaves you, 16 minus, sorry, 5.5. That leaves 10.5 gigs for me to have fun with. Okay, now that's Minecraft, which, doesn't go into swap on me. Okay, Minecraft is actually now into swap on my base model, right? I've been kind of experimenting. Remember, like, when I first talked about this whole 8 gig thing in my Mac Mini base model, like, I fired up Minecraft, and Minecraft wasn't yet into swap. I still had a little bit of space left, right? And that was great. So I decided the other night, I'm gonna do some more of just this one house, which is only like about 6 blocks this way, and I think it's about 9 this way, 6 by 9, 6 by 10, somewhere around there. Anyways, so I started using blocks, just the square blocks, to start building my roof lines so I could add on staircases to make my tiles, but I didn't even get that far. All I did was build the entire perimeter, got my height to where I wanted it, which was like, I think 5 blocks tall. And then I punched out a bunch of blocks to make my, nice little opening French doors. I got those installed, and then that roof part. And I'm already into swap. I haven't gone that far. That's the first thing I've done in Minecraft on that computer. And it's like, I can't even erect a building this small, and it used up all that extra RAM to render it so that I could have a little house that doesn't have any windows. Oh yes, I did get the floor installed too. I put the floor down, okay? So hey, I've got a floor, I've got walls, I've got my roof, and I got a set of doors. I have no windows, no furniture, no nothing in there yet. I'm already into swap. So how is it that 8 gigs is equivalent to 16? Well, they say something about compression. Now, if you know anything about compression, it's pretty simple freaking math. When you take a file and you compress it, okay, that makes it smaller. So anything in this life that you compress, you make smaller. And to make it bigger, it has to expand. Kind of like, my bottle of pop, okay? So right now the lid is sealed, and we have a type of expansion going on because there's gas in pop. It's called carbonated water, right? So there's CO2 gas in this, or a type of gas, okay? So anyways, we can't really compress this in, but if we turn the lid, then we can start compressing the bottle. Now, of course, as we're pressing in on the bottle, it raises our volume up. But it's the same exact amount of pop. There's no difference. It's just that we're now compressing in the sides. So now if we tighten down the lid, that's compressed. That's pretty simple science, okay? So now if we undo this, okay, and we do it right without making a mess on our keyboard, we can pop these sides back out, and it's full again. Now the same volume of liquid is left in there because I already took a few gulps, okay? But now it's re-expanded, okay? So compression and expansion means shrinking to compress, expanding to make larger. You're not compressing the RAM because it's not using less RAM, and that's what they're talking about as far as a file compression system, or how the RAM gets compressed. It uses less. It can't use less because a program wants what a program wants, okay? And if it doesn't see it, it's going to go after what's called virtual memory, which is another form of memory available to the system that's written in program code to say, hey, we're going to use your drive here on some blank area, and we're going to use that for RAM because you're too cheap to buy a computer with real RAM in it, or you got to go up and buy some, okay? Because, yeah, well, I'm going to use your SSD, which is going to slow down your system. It's going to make it go little chatter farts, little chatter farts, little chatter farts. Now, if you don't believe that, there's a guy on YouTube who's got 2 MacBook Airs side by side, 15 inches. They are different colors, but color does not equate to any kind of speed. But the only change he made when he ordered the both of them, one with 8 gigs, one with 16 gigs. And guess which one has less RAM? The one with 8 gigs. And so he did them side by side, and he tested different things. And you could literally see on video how much it was getting bogged down, the machine with 8 gigs. Well, the one with 16 was just like smooth as a baby's bum. It was just going, no problem. But the 8 gigger, now if 8 gigs was equivalent to 16, it wouldn't do that. It actually can't if it was the equivalent, because there would be code written in there to compensate for that without slowing down your machine. But unfortunately, the machine is like, no, you got 8 gigs, man, I need more. So guess what? I'm going to slow down and make your computer stutter and fart, because that's exactly what it does. Okay? Your SSD is not fast enough to keep up with unified RAM or even regular RAM. Okay? Take the fastest, baddest RAM you can find on the market, it still ain't going to be fast enough, okay, to avoid the performance drop. So that's kind of simple logic there, simple math, simple science. And when you get shown that in front of your face, the difference between 8 and 16 gigs, guess what? 8 is 8, 16 is 16. 8 is not equivalent to 16 gigs of RAM. And like I said, they got to stop eating gummy bears at Apple, or they got to stop having massive strokes on the floor, because there's something wrong if they think that for 1 second, 8 is equivalent to 16 gigs of RAM, okay? I think it's just some other kind of a marketing ploy for a poor excuse, because they know they screwed up by even putting 8 gigs of RAM in that new M3, okay? That M3 machine probably will perform really, really well as an M3 and for what it's capable of if you have enough RAM under the hood. But with 8 gigs, don't expect anything really special. It's going to get farted. It's going to get slowed down, because every single person that buys that computer with 8 gigs of RAM is going to be very disappointed in it, because you can't do much with 8 gigs of RAM. Come on, 5.5 gigs to the desktop. That's it. You never ever see that RAM back, okay? You add RAM as programs want RAM. So fact I'm going to leave you with is simply this. Okay, now this you can see on the calculator here. No, we don't want Steam. Get out of there. My Windows computer, because they're saying the equivalent, right? My OS 8.9 is where it's sitting. So 8.9 plus. Now, because I have either 16 gigs of RAM in a computer or I have, well, in this case, 64 gigs, Cyberpunk will run on less than 16 gigs if you have less than 16, because it's just going to take it from swap. So it technically doesn't run on less. It just drops in performance because it's going to use your SSD as swap. In my case, I have 64 gigs of RAM. Okay, Windows 11 to the desktop's at 8.9. Okay, plus Cyberpunk, the app, will take its full 16 gigs. Okay, now that's just to itself. Let's make sure we get this right. 8.9 plus 16. Okay, now that's for the application. Cyberpunk wants 8 gigs of video. I don't have it. I only got 4 gig graphics card. Okay, it's an NVIDIA, has its own 4 gigs, right? However, it will share with system memory. Now, I'm using 3200 megahertz RAM, which is 3.2 gigahertz, okay, in layman's terms, okay? And it doesn't matter how fast the RAM I use, it's not going to help me because I still won't be as fast as the RAM on my video card. So I'm going to get a bog down regardless, okay? Because when you start sharing system RAM with a video card, you also take a performance drop. Even if you have 192 gigs RAM in your computer, if your video card only has X amount and your computer wants more video for a program than what you have in your computer, it will use system RAM. And we all know that Apple computers are all about using system RAM for everything, including your video, right? But that's 16 for the app because it knows it can take it. Now, it's going to take all of my 4 gig graphics card, okay, which means my graphics card is getting maxed out for draw, and it's going to take an additional 4 gigs to get to the 8 gigs. It's going to take that from system RAM. So now we got to add on just the 4 gig because that's what it's going to steal from the system, okay? That is 28.9 gigs of RAM that should technically be in use when Cyberpunk is running. And there's no way to track this because Cyberpunk takes over the entire thing. It's not a windowed program where you can flip between things, right? So yeah, that's what we're getting taken out of the entire computer. So to play Cyberpunk, okay, you would be able to do it without a problem with this configuration, but you will get a slower video response, which affects your frames per second. Okay, so I'm getting about 60-ish out of Cyberpunk. Okay, I could get upwards to 100 if I actually had an 8 gig graphics card for Cyberpunk, but I don't. I only have 4. But Cyberpunk still runs beautiful at 60. Okay, so I don't really care. So anyways, if you were to pull a stunt like that on a Mac with only 8 gigs of RAM, how much swap would you be going into? Well, go do the math yourself. You'll figure it out. It's not that hard. Okay? It's going to use a lot, right? So into swap, which means the more you go into swap, by the way, the more the performance hit happens. Okay? A little bit of swap is still the starting of farting. Okay? Even a little bit. Even if you're going into swap for 1 gigabyte, that's 1 gigabyte. And it's still affecting performance. But the more you use swap on a computer, Mac or PC, doesn't matter, the more performance hits. In fact, the performance hit is actually worse on a Windows computer than it is on a Mac. But that has nothing to do with Apple's compression because they're not compressing anything. Okay? Because we've already talked about how compression in the real world works. We've also talked about how RAM actually works. 8 is 8, 16 is 16, 32 is 32, and so on. So don't believe the BS that they're trying to feed people because they're just trying to get away with saying that it's okay to have 8 gigs of RAM. It's really okay. Don't worry, you'll be fine. Because we've even seen the proof on not more than just that one video with the 2 MacBook Airs. We've seen more than that from other YouTubers who have done it. And not many have, but enough that have done it. I appreciate those guys that they did that. And I have the ability to do side-by-side testing now with the exact same machines, with the difference in my case being I have 16 by 512 and I have 8 by 256, but we've already determined that the drives are running virtually at identical speeds, because this was before Apple started screwing you over in the M2s with the smaller drives now having one chip instead of two chip. Okay, these both have the twin chips, so we got lots of speed and we're good. But we just lack a lot of RAM at 8 gigs. So anywho, that's what I have for you guys today. Hope you enjoyed the video. Hope you learned a lot. And yeah, it'd be nice if Apple would, stop trying to BS their way out of, little problems that they run into. Because they really did disgrace that M3 MacBook Pro, and they definitely severely disgraced the iMac. And previous to that, they did a total disgrace job on the Mac Pro Tower, because that thing is a walking, living internet joke. And it's a serious joke of a machine. I wouldn't give you a nickel for it. So yeah, I'd buy the Studio instead, and all my stuff plugs into ports, so who cares? Anyway, thanks for watching. See ya.